what of secular and philosophical agnosticism? An attitude of questioning is characteristic of one who might claim to be an agnostic, and this does not just need to be, as I said before, in the religious realm. It is certainly healthy to question. However, to question is to ponder a course of action. This demands thinking, which again can be hard work. Humanism was declared as a religion in a 1961 Supreme Court decision, and it does have tenets to which it adheres, that is the Humanist Manifesto, that are characterized by openness to inquiry. For example, the Humanist Manifesto denies any supernatural being. However, it is interesting that some of the Christian persuasion have adapted the laudable Humanist Manifesto with no problem, by agreeing that they too do not adhere to a belief in a supernatural being or a God who performs miraculous deeds. Instead, placing ethical responsibility on humans to do good in the world without the need to depend on an external God for judgment, approval, or rewards for actions taken in a life of service. To adopt this philosophy is to embrace human responsibility for one's actions in the world and face up to the uncertainties that accompany those decisions. If God is acknowledged for whatever reason, then God is not the master manipulator of human life, or of any life that has evolved via natural selection, or even the initiator of the Big Bang. Much of Christianity has been unwilling to embrace these scientific suggestions, and until it begins to do so, organized religion will continue to be viewed as an outlier to those who question and view believers as not understanding their own mythology of origin. It is one thing to acknowledge a myth of origin as a story that is rich in meaning but not factual. It is another thing altogether to view these stories literally and believe them without question. Following the teachings of the Buddha could be acknowledged as an agnostic approach to life that does not offer false hopes based on what one has accomplished in life. The teachings do not foretell judgment, nor is there a promised paradise at the end of life. It is a way of living that is open to dealing with the serendipity of the unplanned and unintended course of events that we encounter through life's journey. Buddhists deal with ambiguity as best they can without anxiety or remorse about having been dealt something unexpected. On the other hand, this simple understanding and practice has also been raised to the level of another ism, to become a religion called Buddhism. Stephen Batchelor has written, religious interpretations invariably reduce complexity to uniformity, while elevating matter-of-factness to holiness. So Buddhism too can be debased via idolatry and attempts to define it beyond the beautiful simplicity that it represents. In attempting to explain to his followers what he came to understand, the Buddha described that he had achieved complete freedom from the compulsion of craving. The anguish produced by craving maintains its power only as long as we allow ourselves to be intimidated. The challenge of letting go of craving is to act before habitual reactions incapacitate us. Letting go begins with understanding, a calm and clear acceptance of what is happening. The Buddhist views failure to face up to something that has power over us as paralysis, feeling psychologically stuck and obsessed. To understand a concern is to know it calmly and clearly for what it is, transient, contingent, and devoid of intrinsic identity. Contemporary agnosticism has tended to lose its moral imperative and lapse into skepticism, just as Buddhism has tended to lose its critical edge and lapse into a form of religiosity that was never intended. An agnostic Buddhist would not regard the Dharma, that is, the teachings of the Buddha, as a source of answers to life's major questions. Where did I come from? How did I get here? And where am I going? he or she would seek out answers from the best possible scientific sources with openness to all possibilities. An agnostic Buddhist looks to the teachings of the Buddha for metaphors that apply to meeting confrontation head-on, rather than metaphors seeking consolation. The agnostic Buddhist is not looking for salvation, disavows atheism as well as theism, and does not regard the universe as meaningless, rather endowed with meaning. Such an agnostic stance is founded on the universal agnostic imperative, I do not know. My own personal version of letting go of anguish is to rid myself of any and all expectations, approaching things as they are and not the way I expect or want them to be. I suppose some would accuse me of rationalizing, but it is liberating to free myself from the fantasy of a perfect world that is free of problems and conflict. To have expectations is to have foregone conclusions that inevitably become dashed on the rocks of reality. To have a realistic approach to life is to confront and deal with the ambiguity of whatever happens. How we deal with these challenges reveal much about our ability to negotiate our way along the journey. To live in denial is to shield oneself from a reality we know exists, but choose not to confront. This is a common path that people take, and it ends up producing more anxiety than comfort. For some, the end product of life's quest is to find comfort. Unfortunately, it is another one of those placating feelings that is again self-deceptive. So in conclusion, despite the attempts by people like myself who seek rational approaches to understanding religion, there will always be those who long for the purity of a previous age and simple, unquestioning naivete. I do not mean to demean them. However, they are more accepting than I am about how life came about and the resultant religious beliefs that emanated from that myth of origin. Karen Armstrong again has stated in her book, The Battle for God, that fundamentalists have turned the mythos of their religion into logos, either by insisting that their dogmas are scientifically true or by transforming their complex mythology into a streamlined ideology. I have often pondered how we as a society should address the social malaise that is currently characterized by self-centeredness and a lack of compassion for those who have little to look forward to. Many people have not yet realized that living in society is about respecting the dignity of every life, not just those who some believe have earned it. I would like to extend a modest proposal that is simple and straightforward. I believe that we should begin to invite young children into the evaluation of simple ethical situations. Having children begin to think about issues that are gray is to invite them into a realization that simple black and white answers to complex questions and problems do not exist. It is through that simple agnostic struggle that we begin to confront realities that will begin to introduce children to real-life issues and adequate reasoned resolutions, hopefully gaining some empathy for the other in the process. For to behave ethically is always to have the other in mind. We continually ask, how will my day-to-day actions in the world affect or impact others? If children grow up with a sense of concern for others, the world would be a different place. This is indeed learning the practice of the Golden Rule. Sadly, one of the institutions that holds children back are religious traditions that teach certainty and the comfort of knowing that a supernatural being is looking out for them. They are being invited into a false reality that insulates and protects them from the harsh realities of life. There should be a balance here in the way we teach our children if we choose to bring them up within religious institutions. We are reluctant to teach them that the biblical bases of belief are no different from other stories that are not literally true. We fail by not inviting them into the richness of religious stories, just as when we read them fairy tales, which we know they do not internalize literally. Do we fail to give children enough credit for the realities that they are in the process of creating? The sooner we begin to acknowledge our ignorance, the sooner we will openly be able to confront the fears that paralyze us from acting with compassion towards others. We all have only one responsibility to make a difference in the world, and it is a responsibility that we dare not squander in attempting to please or appease a judgmental deity. We can each make a difference by creating children, thereby leaving 50% of ourselves behind, or we can choose to become role models that others might possibly emulate. We need not worry about permanence, for despite our best efforts, gravity and entropy will get us in the end. The good thing, though, is that we will never not be part of the universe, because the mass and energy that comprise us will forever be available as future stardust.